The Mazda CX-5 is the top-selling SUV in Australia, recently updated for 2015 with additional equipment and improved refinement. It's a great vehicle, one of the best, but in this review I'll tell you exactly what's wrong with the CX-5 so you can make an informed decision about whether to drop the cash on one or not. This is a mid-life model upgrade, just the hair and makeup really. The major bodywork carries over, as does the powertrain. You get to choose from 3 engines, 2 transmissions and 4 equipment grades. It's essentially the same old CX-5 released back in 2012, but it's had the lipo, the Botox and the porcelain veneers. I guess that makes it slightly sexier, slightly, in the right light, through a Pro Mist filter, after a couple of beers. The CX-5 is very good to drive. It's precise. 2 out of the 3 engines perform just fine. They all deliver great fuel economy. The fundamental engineering in a Mazda CX-5 is spot on. The CX-5 is basically the exact polar opposite of the Holden Captiva. They don't call that vehicle the Craptiva for nothing. Every spectrum needs an absolute zero, if only for calibration. And we've certainly got one here in SUVs. The CX-5 powertrain breaks down like this. Unless your budget is really tight, forget the front-wheel drive 2-litre. The all-wheel drive with 2.5-litre petrol or 2.2-litre diesel is where you want to be. And the diesel offers much better mid-rev performance. It's got 70% more torque at half the revs, compared with the 2.5 petrol. So the diesel blows the good petrol engine out of the water for ordinary driving and for towing. But if you don't get out on the highway once every 2 to 3 weeks, the petrol is probably a better idea, because the CX-5 diesel has a particle filter in the exhaust, and regular highway running is necessary to keep its Ouija board communicating with those dead particles in the afterlife. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. The model range starts with the Max, steps up to the Max Sport, then the Grand Touring and the Akira. The entry-level Max is a base model cheapie designed principally to price lead the range and appeal to the kinds of accountants who sign off on rental car fleets. You want to buy in at Max Sport model grade or above. It's almost $6,000 more to step up, but you get a lot more SUV for that extra dough. Grand Touring models, the next step up, are also very nice, commensurate with the price. And the Worksburger, which Mazda calls the Akira, presumably because Worksburger was already taken. Can you imagine it? The CX-5 Worksburger. That would almost certainly get lost in translation. Those crazy Japanese and their Jinba Itai. Anyway, the range-topping CX-5 Akira Worksburger is brain-bendingly well-equipped. In fact, it's so well-equipped for about 50 grand that you could put a CX-5 Akira up against an Audi Q3, a BMW X1 or a Mercedes-Benz GLA, dollar for dollar, 50 grand to spend on each, and the Akira is going to blow each German contender out of the water and into the stratosphere against any robust objective criteria comparison. You want value? Well, the Germans just can't deliver value at 50 grand. Akira is extremely good value, but not cheap. The Germans at that price point are really just the wonder bra of prestige cars. After jumping through all those hoops, you finally get the clasp undone. And the chuzzies on a $50,000 German SUV go from double D to triple A faster than you can say, but I was expecting more. So, Mazda's designers changed the exterior trim, they added a couple of additional colours, they tweaked the lights front and rear, and they even messed around with the door mirrors and the shark fin aerial on the roof imperceptibly. They also re-jigged the interior. The infotainment system is now a lot better integrated, as in it looks better, and there's now a command dial down near your left hand to drive the screen. And that makes it easier to navigate through all of those menus. so that's nice. Overall, the dashboard has a sleeker layout as well. There's now 2 USB ports, a revised centre console and an electronic park brake. So let's all lose control of our bladders over that minor model upgrade stuff, shall we? Mazda has copped something of a justified critical kicking in the past for excessive NVH. That's insider chat for noise, vibration and harshness. So this time around, they took that on board, and with the 2015 model, they boosted the acoustic insulation in the firewall and on the floor, and they even thickened up all the glass to cut the noise. So that's good. It is quieter in there. The suspension's been retuned as well for less body roll in the corners, with the trade-off being firmer ride. So if you're a real driver, that's great. If you wanted the lounge room on wheels experience though, it's something less of that. You'll definitely feel the bumps and the ripple strips a bit more in the 2015 CX-5. Petrol models now get a sports mode that increases throttle response at the flick of a switch. It also raises the revs at which the transmission decides to shift ratios. So it doesn't actually increase the vehicle's absolute performance, it just feels like you're trying a little bit harder. CX-5 is a very good SUV, but it's far from perfect. The first speed hump is appropriate technology, and here Mazda's engineers are literally too clever by half. Yes, they did a good job cutting the fuel consumption with Sky Active, but iStop is hateful, just hateful. That's the automatic engine shut-off and restart system. For starters, it's hardly dignified, especially when it's fighting the diesel engine's compression to achieve an autonomous restart. Now, you can turn iStop off by pressing and holding a button, but then every time you get back in the car, it is active once again. Its default setting is on, and that can't be changed. So if you hate iStop, as I do, you have to turn it off manually again and again and again, and that gets old. From an engineering point of view, that's kind of philosophically hateful and extremely conceited. Note to Masashi Otsuka, the CX-5 program manager, just let me turn it off like a light switch, buddy. Then I'll stop criticising iStop and we can all get on with our lives. We both know it's really only there to cook the books on the official fuel consumption tests. Also for Otsuka-san's attention, the new auto lane keeping feature really is an example of mining for the lowest common denominator of drivers. Mercedes-Benz and others do this as well. Like, your reward for being a good driver is, we're going to insult your intelligence. I'm sure all the engineers think it's really clever. Say you're driving down the road and you drift right towards the edge of the lane. The system sees you going off course and it shakes the wheel and otherwise carries on like an off-meds bipolar prima donna. It's designed to keep you in the centre of the lane. That sounds good when you say it like that, right? Helps you stay in the centre of the lane. Hard to argue the toss with that. However, let's say you're having what Mazda would call a zoom drive. It's their official emotional marketing keystone. I know. Anyway, you're zooming around a right-hand bend, and because you're actually a good driver, you point the CX-5 at the apex of the curve on the edge of the lane. Imagine one's immediate surprise and confusion followed by absolute discontent. That sinking feeling when the steering wheel carries on in this undignified, uneducated fashion at every apex. A real HAL 9000 moment right there. Or Skynet, something like that. A passion killer. It's up there with your wife walking in on you and your girlfriend. Maybe not quite that bad. They take a very dim view on that. At least, that's what I heard. Listen up, Mazda engineers. You lot should not design systems for people who can't drive and which are also detrimental to the driving experience of those of us who can. Personal view. It's probably a great system if you want habitually to SMS and drive, or you feel like driving despite suffering from clinical narcolepsy. Finally, I do this radio segment on 2UE in Sydney every week, and plenty of people ring in and they tell me they need to step up from their current Mazda 3-sized car to an SUV. And they say this is because they need the additional space. And I'm thinking, what additional space? Let's think about that. A CX-5 is bigger than a Mazda 3, but not as much bigger as you might think. It's all of 8 centimetres longer, that's 3.5 inches in the old money. Now, 8 centimetres is a big deal in other domains, in the trouser department, for example, but in cars, CX-5 is also 4.5 centimetres wider than a Mazda 3, that's less than 2 inches, and it's 24 centimetres higher, a bit under 10 inches. So if you're looking for a Ron Jeremy-esque justification for dimensional upgrades, that's pretty much it. Any increase in length and width stepping up from a small car to a CX-5 is minimal, and that means the accommodation on offer in the SUV is actually very similar. The height is greater, for sure, but even that is not as Ron Jeremy as it seems. Some of that extra height is just ground clearance boosting, and the rest is ceiling height, the least useful dimension for carrying cargo, because you can't stack the boot to the ceiling unless you fit a cargo barrier. If you do, in the absence of a barrier, all the stuff up there will just rain down on the kids when you hit the brakes, and someone will doubtless call the Department of Community Services, and you'll have to go to mediation. So in practical terms, the CX-5 has pumped up the volume, but probably not by as much as you might presume, compared with a small car. Interestingly, the same engines are used in Mazda 3 and CX-5, but the CX-5 weighs almost 1/4 of a tonne more, so performance is somewhat less. Spec for spec, it's going to cost you $7,000 to $10,000 more to step up from a Mazda 3 to a CX-5. And you'll have to decide for yourself whether you think that's a good move or not. That's about $1,200 per centimetre, if you really need the extra length. Don't get me wrong, the CX-5 is a damn good SUV. It's absolutely one of the best you can buy. But like all vehicles, it's just not perfect. Decide first if you really need an SUV, because size does matter, but they're really not that much bigger in practice. If you want an SUV, Mazda CX-5 is definitely one to put on your shortlist. You should test drive it up against a Hyundai iX35 or Kia Sportage and a Subaru Forester. And then, if you really don't feel like playing that emotionally uplifting, spiritually fulfilling and intellectually stimulating game we call negotiating with a car dealer, and it is so hateful, fill in the contact form at the website and I'll help you out. Saving thousands on a new car is dead easy. Even a politician could do it. autoexpert.com.au. Leave a comment below to let me know what you think and subscribe for regular updates. I'm John Cadogan. Thanks for watching.